Let's be innovative. Let's challenge the norm. Let's raise the bar. Let's be the elite.
Lionheart returns debuting its new championship format. For the first time, Lionheart's best will battle in a multi-class format featuring BMW's all-new M Hybrid V8 and M4 GT3 machines. 55 drivers will face off in the ultimate test in the ultimate driving machine. 18 races at the world's most demanding road courses where traffic takes on a whole new meaning. This year, Lionheart will crown 2 champions. Whose name will be etched into the Lionheart history books? Find out next. The Buttkicker Sportscar Championship, presented by BMW Performance Driving School, starts now. The Lionheart Racing Series makes its way to hometown turf, to Speedway, Indiana. Today, it's a battle on the bricks as the Buttkicker Sportscar Series gets ready to do battle at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This road course configuration was brought here, of course, for Formula One, but earlier this month, just a couple of weeks ago, we saw IMSA come here and multi-class madness was something to behold. Welcome to the BMW Performance Center Grand Prix presented by Buttkicker. Hello everyone, welcome back to RaceSpotTV for coverage of the 2023 Buttkicker Sports Car Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, as ever joined by the one and only Andrew Kinsella as we get set for what is bound to be an exciting 90 minutes of racing action. Let's dive straight into our BMW Performance Driving School pre-race show because, Andrew, it's very nice to be back at Speedway, Indiana. But it feels a little bit different. We're here with 2 classes, and we're going to be going the wrong way down as we thunder towards the Yard of Bricks.
Yeah, we've been all over the world these past few months here with this Lionheart Sports Car Series, but we're back home again in Indiana, and it couldn't be better for these sports car drivers, and it couldn't come at a better time for some drivers after a little bit of a cagey matchup at Silverstone the last time out. So I definitely think that the drivers are happy to be back here in Indiana. As you say, a little bit strange going down the front straightaway the wrong way, but it's happened in real life now, Arjuna, so we can't say it's that strange anymore.
No, definitely not, and that's why I think we're really looking forward to what the drivers have in store as we wind our way further and further to the end of this championship run. Here's a look at the Next Level Racing schedule, and it's going to be a busy month of October with 3 races, all building up to the final 3 that will see it run into 2024. Of course, the Nürburgring and Imola are very different to Indianapolis, but of course we're very excited to see the challenges that each of these tracks will throw up. The BMW Performance Driving School LMDH standings look as close as ever, but it is starting to be now increasingly a two-car breakaway at the front. John Baderfer, Phil Krause separated by just the 6 points at the top. You have to go a further 23 back to find Austin Young. Early championship leader Graham Sanders, has slowly closed his way back up into the championship mix. It's still looking close though, Andrew, with only one of the drop rounds being counted into play. Ultimately, as we wind our way closer into the closing end of the season, it's still wide open between the top four.
It absolutely is, and Phil Krause has really been trying to battle the Hydra Race Geodesic Racing onslaught, and he's been doing an admirable job of it. Of course, last time out, John Baderford did have those issues with Adam Blocker, and it was a bit of a recovery drive for him. So if Krause can keep up the momentum that he's starting to build here, I definitely see him being a real threat in that top four.
So that is the faster LMDH class. Of course, they compete in the BMW M Hybrid V8 and the BMW M4 GT3. It's split up into Pro and AMs. They battle on track together. They score points though and are classified separately, or rather, score points together, classified separately. Sean Campbell, runaway champion so far. 100% success rate. Only Miguel Vigo has been able to grab a solitary victory to stop Campbell's breakaway streak. Ryan Otis and Josh Chin, only 8 points separate them, but ultimately it's Synergy Motorsports that dominate the team championship with Otis and Morhart both in the top 5. And when you go down to the AMs, Andrew, you look at Chase Wilson there. The summer break that saw Wilson miss a couple of rounds has seen the margin close to Trevor Malone, but as we saw Chase Wilson last time out back into his top 5 form in the GT3 combined standings.
Yeah, he was certainly on form during the race. He had that unfortunate incident with a couple of laps to go that actually put him down in the actual results last week. So it did allow Trevor Malone and Chris Reagan to just ever so slightly close the gap on Chase Wilson. But yeah, you have to say that he's done a fantastic job all season long, and he's really got one hand on the trophy already. But as you say, with this combined points, anything can happen. If one of these drivers gets a really good round here, the gap can go away very, very quickly in that AM championship.
Trevor Malone was quick in practice. He'll be hoping that here at a familiar track he's able to close the margin. HyperX Team Championship in the LMDH standings. Breakaway leaders are the Hydra Race Geodesic Racing, and of course breakaway leaders in GT3. We talked about the Synergy Motorsports team. It's behind them where it's still quite close. Synergy Laval Motorsports have seen the gap shrink to Powerslide Motorsports, who are growing the gap slightly to the Graphics LC Chronograph team. Let's not forget some standout names. Private Label Team Hype, Hydra Race Geodesic. Those are solo car efforts with, of course, Phil Krause and Austin Young. Same can be said, Andrew, for WMP Racing. Sean Campbell third in the GT3 Team Championship.
It just goes to show you the dominance that Sean Campbell has been putting up in that GT3 category. But yeah, that gap at the front, though, Synergy Motorsports with the GT3 running away with the lead, and that's all down to not only the speed but the consistency of both Ryan Otis and probably the surprise of the season in Matthew Morhart.
Without a shadow of a doubt, Morhart has consistently now been able to latch on to the speed of those inside of the top 5. Here's a look, though, at the Gomez Sim Industry Series details in the very first year of this butt kicker sports car series. We are no strangers, though, to Speedway Indiana in the 10th year of the Lionheart Racing Series, competing in the BMW M Hybrid and BMW M4 GT3 machines, all with custom fixed setups built by the Majors Garage. They're fighting for their share of $18,000 in cash and prizes. The champions all driving away in a BMW M4 GT4 experience at the BMW Performance Driving School in Thermal, California. It's all through 90-minute timed races with live race control, and if you joined us a couple of weeks ago, you'll know just how important that live race control can sometimes be. Let's talk about the arena track analysis, though, as we return to a familiar venue, and I think most importantly, to a track where track limits aren't necessarily going to be too much of a concern after several Grade 1 facilities have frustrated some drivers. But most importantly, Andrew, it's a month in which 3 races are going to run. It's the final month in which drivers can really make some inroads in the championship swing.
It really is, and it's so key to capitalize on an opportunity like this. As we look at the track map here, you can see that there's going to be a number of different passing opportunities here, and it's going to be interesting to see how the GT3 traffic fares with the long straightaways, the 2 long straightaways, but also that tight twisting bit at both ends of the speedway. The traffic management is going to be very important here, probably more so than it was a couple weeks ago at Silverstone.
It's one of those tracks as well where you've got the fast sections, and especially that chicane 5 and 6, and then the slower sections. Both are going to have significant disparity between the two classes. Navigating through that's going to be the most important factor, you think, over the course of today's 90-minute affair. The drivers are out on track for qualifying. Before we join them, it's time to thank those that make all of this possible, starting with HyperX. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. Visit thebuttkicker.com. If you think sim racing is thrilling, try getting behind the wheel of a real race car. The BMW M4 GT4 experience at the BMW Performance Driving School in Thermal, California puts you in the cockpit of one of BMW's fastest cars, complete with roll cage and racing slicks. You'll get fitted with a racing suit, practice pit stop, and lap their track with pro instructors. Nothing virtual about their thrills. To book your M4 GT4 experience, call or visit the links on screen. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. Arena is an all-new esports streaming experience driven by real-time interaction between gamers and their communities. Arena brings live broadcast fan engagement to the next level. Get involved and make a difference on arena.tv. From simple logos to full branding for your company, Virtual Designs deliveries race by Indy 500 champions. Graphics offers the finest quality with a wide range of design services. Visit graphicsesports.com to learn more. Andrew, qualifying at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is always a nerve-wracking experience. Most of the drivers already have their times on the board, with already more than 10 of the 15 minutes in the session burned. Phil Krause currently leads by 0.2 of a second in the LMDH field, where no improvements will be seen. Chris Reagan's just jumped up into the GT3 top 10, but Sean Campbell once again on provisional pole in that BMW M4 GT3.
Qualifying here is always my least favorite part of the race weekend. When you come through here, you have to be so precise and hit your apexes so well, and then there are just a couple of curbs, particularly through here, this chicane that we're seeing on screen right now. The car can just get thrown around and you suddenly find yourself losing 2-3 tenths down this straightaway. So it's a really tricky track to nail, and as you say, 4 laps and 15 minutes to do it. It's a tall order to get that perfect lap together.
Did this track improve when they changed it to what we have now, Andrew? Yes or no?
Yes.
Good. Okay, we're at least in agreement there. Are we also in agreement that the old double hairpins were awful?
Yes, the old double hairpins were awful.
Okay, good. Complete alignment there. Only 3 drivers, out on laps that will improve. Chase Wilson, Chris Reagan, and Austin Young. Andrew Marquez is setting up for what will be one of his final attempts. In fact, his very final attempt in the session. And so that's going to be all about just maintaining tire temperatures and now making sure he can build that speed as much as possible. Here's Reagan, had just cracked the top 10 with a 1:26.454. That's definitely not going to be improvement. He's got one more lap with which to find a little bit of time. Here's Chase Wilson, though, into what is now a quite tricky final sector, Andrew, especially in these quite lumbering GT3 machines. And, well, he practiced a pit entry.
Yeah, these GT3s don't necessarily change directions in a quick manner, and that's definitely to the detriment around here, because There's a lot of chicanes, whether it's the fast left right at turn 5 or 6, but even turn 1 and 2, you have to change directions on a dime, and these GT3 cars don't do that the same way that the prototypes do.
And of course, these cars do have ABS, so in braking they'll be a little bit better. On power, they have traction control, if not the hybrid, so at least on trying to get the power down, sometimes they are able to roll out of the corner with a little bit more intent. Marquez, the New York native, out of the final corner as Austin Young, on his first attempt in qualifying, goes 2.5 seconds off the pace. Still has 2 minutes with which to improve, and you would assume that the improvement will come from there. Once again, into that final sector, the graphics LC Corbo, number 63, tiptoes its way on through, really clambers over the curb and bails out of the lap. Andrew Marquez, I think, picking up a slowdown penalty.
Yeah, unfortunately for Marquez, he's not going to be able to improve on that lap, but just some notes on Austin Young. He actually just recently rejoined the server. He was having controller issues before the start of this session, so he didn't actually even get any practice time here. So these are the first laps that he's turning today after seemingly rectifying those controller issues. So I think that's definitely going to put him behind the 8 ball in terms of qualifying here.
That's a always nervy experience as well, when qualifying's the first experience that you have of what your setup, not just the car itself, but at home is going to feel like. You can see a little bit tentative out onto the back straightaway, sweeping back onto the banking. Nice shot of the BMW M Hybrid V8, 117.0, the previous bet. Surely going to improve there. It's a 115.4. It's almost a second off, but at least Austin Young's going to start from inside of the front 4 rows.
And I think Austin Young will definitely take that with the limited practice that he's been able to have.
And so, well, that's all the drivers, at least with their representative qualifying times done. It's always a tradition when you come back home again to Indiana that we break out Jim Neighbors for what is now a tradition on RaceSpotTV.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still burning bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay sends all its fragrance through the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home.
Ready to go for another round of the Butt Kicker Sports Car Series. Let's run you down through today's Butt Kicker starting grid. It's Phil Krause that will lead us to the green with a 114.554 as he looks to try and claw his way to the championship lead. Graham Sanders alongside 2/10 off with his teammate John Bader for just 15 thousandths further behind. Caleb Benzie on the outside of row 2 qualifies well, with Michael O'Brien and David Sirrar sharing row number 3. Rolling from 7th will be Austin Young, hoping to charge his way forward after those technical dramas. Bradley Sexton with some new colors, along with Alex Guyon and Matt Taylor, round out your top 10 in the LMDH field. Over to the GT3s, where Sean Campbell jumps out of an LMP3 car once again, where he's just been victorious on RaceSpotTV, and directly into pole position for yet another time in his career. It's a 125.059, more than 3/10 better than Ryan Otis, who looks to assert his dominance over Josh Chin in the battle for second in the points. Lionel Kalisto will roll alongside, while Chase Wilson, the AM, rolls from 5th, hoping to once again solidify some very worthy championship points. Andrew Marquez, 1 second off, is on the outside of row number 3, with Tyler Graf, Trevor Malone, Carlos Villa, and then Chris Reagan making up the rest of the top 10. It's Logan Spath in 11th, alongside with Craig Forsyth in the 40 Raceway SRT number 53, Creighton Carter, Jim Herrick, and then Travis Jägerlehner making up the rest of the 15 BMW M4 GT3s that get ready to roll out at the Speedway. They get a full formation lap with which to work, which means plenty of time to get some temperature into those tires. Some featured onboard cameras as ever to run you down through, and so as the GT3s begin to pull themselves away, let's jump on board with Ryan Otis and with the BMW Performance Driving School. Drive on the edge of physics and experience the ultimate rush. Visit BMWPerformanceDrivingCenter.com. New York's own Andrew Marquez carries with him Butt Kicker. Sim racing is better with Butt Kicker. Visit thebuttkicker.com. And as we jump our way up on forward to those prototypes, John Bader for rides with HyperX. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. And Austin Young having to work his way forward from 7 Spot Carries Arena on board. A new streaming experience for esports come and get involved and make a difference on arena.tv. Andrew, I'm always excited when we come here to the Speedway, and right now, I'll be honest, I have no idea which way this race is going to go.
Forget the race. I have no idea which way turn 1 is going to go. We've seen so many times, both in the sim and in real life, that races can be won or lost in turn 1 here. None more memorable probably than Devlin DiFrancesco's highlight of the year and highlight of his career when he went 5 wide into turn 1 and took the lead from 5th place on the grid. So you never know what's going to happen when you get to this speedway, whether it's in the 500 or around the road course like this. And I think that we're going to see some fireworks here in lap 1, turn 1.
Does Sean Campbell get reeled on in the GT3 field? Because this is not traditionally a track where I would say draft is going to play a factor, Andrew, especially in a race where traffic is going to be so important.
I think if you're in one of those first 2 or 3 rows in that GT3 field, you have to be looking at trying to get around him on that first corner. If you can't make a dive there, I just don't see you being able to stay with Sean Campbell for the long haul in this race. So if someone can get around him, it's definitely going to be on turn 1 there.
Who's kissing the bricks then, Andrew, very quickly?
I'm going with Graham Sanders and Sean Campbell.
Ooh, interesting. So second and first on the grid as we head our way into that final chicane. There's the track conditions, Andrew. We haven't looked at them yet. Does that track temperature scare you?
It does a little bit. In that time of 1 p.m. in sim time, it's going to only get hotter from here, Arjuna.
Well, it's going to build up on track without a shadow of a doubt. Silverstone was a fine and feisty race, but competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and we're ready to go for the BMW Performance Center Indy Grand Prix, presented by Butt Kicker. It's Phil Krause along with Graham Sanders on the front row that enter their way into the starting zone and get ready to get themselves launched in towards the opening corner. Green flag flies, a long hold, and Krause gets us going. Caleb Bensie's going to pop out. We'll be 3 wide as we dive our way in towards turn number 1. But it's all for second. Krause is clear. Big jig to the inside from Austin Young as well. He's completely missed the braking zone. Dives through the corner and sails off into the grass. Everyone else is safely through as the GT3 start their way into turn 1 as well.
That was a big moment from Austin Young, but here it is. The GT3's down into 1. Sean Campbell well clear, but we're 3 and 4 wide in the back here. This could end in disaster, but somehow it looks like we've just about got through. Oh! That's Carlos Villa, I believe.
Tyler Graf initially got tipped around. Craig Forsyth, the 40 Raceware car, and Logan Spath, the ones that really got the worst of it. The GTPs are already heading off into the final sector. Such a feisty start from them. GT3s have already seen Sean Campbell break away by half a second, running down the back straight.
And Austin Young has rejoined the back of the GTP field, so it doesn't look like it's hurt him too much, but I wonder, Arjuna, if that was a side effect of not having any practice on those practice starts that they often do. Just missed the braking zone entirely from Young.
You also mentioned technical issues, so one wonders if there was just some hesitation with how much confidence to go into turn 1 on that opening lap. And again, there is practice that these teams will often do in the build up to this race. Off into the opening corner once again they will fly. Phil Krause is already 1.2 seconds clear, and he is a man that is no stranger to winning here at the Brickyard. He will be looking to break away at the front for what is expected to be a 30-lap fuel run for these GTP machines might actually be the potential that they will have to do some saving to potentially be able to stretch out a little bit more fuel from them. Sean Campbell, 8/10 clear, off into turn number 2.
It's been a nice start from Campbell, real clean. He was able to keep everyone behind him, and Otis is doing a good job of staying with him. I'm actually pleasantly surprised that he's been able to do as well as he has been so far. Looking at the track map down at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you can see the separation already forming between the GTPs and the GT3s. But one thing we haven't talked about is this is a really quick lap time for both sets of cars, Arjuna. 1 minute 15s for the prototypes and 1 minute 25s for the GT3s. So there's going to be a lot of laps happening over the next 90 minutes.
And they're not easy laps by any means either, because this is a track where you're frequently onto the brakes and with a decent amount of force. Betafer's gotten in front of Bensi after the race first car was able to get the jump on the initial start. Swap around once again, and Betafer is going to try and close back up to his teammate Graham Sanders, who's been able to reel up that margin to Phil Kraus towards the front. Let's go back in time then, and I think the only way to look at a moment in towards turn number 1, as Jim Herrick loses a couple of positions and some time into 13th in the GTD class. Only way to look at something into turn number 1, Andrew, is always from up above.
And you can see, I think Austin, he just missed the braking point, and then discretion was the better part of valor. Made sure that he didn't get into anyone, and then stopped on that straightaway there. But he's right behind Michael O'Brien in front of him. I think he was looking to maybe go to the outside, but then he just blew the braking zone entirely and did a good job of not getting into anyone. And then again comes to the stop here right on the old chicane there, and just waits for the whole field to go by. So he shouldn't have any further penalties from that, I don't believe.
I tell you what, that's about as sporting as you can be once you made as big a mistake as that. You're right, it was all just missing the braking point. So that's what happened to Craig Forsyth as they went 3 wide. Tyler Graf got pitched around, but Forsyth and Logan Spath, I believe it was, again, just got the worst of it. Let's jump back in time, jump on board with that number 3 of Logan Spath.
Yeah, you can see it looked like Graf made contact with someone else, and then it was just a chain reaction, nowhere for Spath to go there, unfortunately.
And it was, Carlos Villa in that Hydra Race Geodesic racing machine that Logan Spath ended up making up contact with, but outside of that, everyone's still on track. There's only some cosmetic damage, it would appear, for the mechanics to wrench away on in these early stages. The other thing to note when it comes to short laps, Andrew, is traffic's going to be even more frequent, and as Phil Kraus and Graham Sanders get ready to finish their 4th lap of racing, they're probably only about 3 laps away from getting to the back of that GT3 train.
Yeah, when you consider that there's about a 10-second difference between the classes, and it's only about a 75-second lap, that means that they're going to be catching those GT3 cars basically once every 7 laps or so. So it's going to be really difficult for these GTPs, LMDHs to negotiate all that traffic. But I gotta say, at the front of your screen, Kraus had done a real nice job at the beginning to get a little gap. Sanders is not letting him go though, is he, Arjuna?
No, he is very much keeping that pressure on, heading off through this opening sector that has not actually changed that much since the original road course was added for Formula One, going on now almost 23 years ago. Austin Young's recovery, by the way, season get past Matt Taylor. That is only for 9th and 10th position though, still 10 full seconds off the back here. 53 degrees track temperature, just a reminder, that's a scorcher, Andrew, and it means that these drivers are liable to probably be changing all 4 tires, I would assume, in both pit stops we'll see today.
And that's 128 degrees Fahrenheit for anyone using the Freedom units in our viewers. But yeah, tires are definitely going to be important here. I think that we're going to see a lot of tire degradation, and managing your tires over the course of a run is going to be very, very important. We've seen different drivers have had different levels of success at that over the course of this season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens here for sure.
And here we go. Traffic, as we predicted, only a couple of laps later, they're into the thick of it. Phil Kraus already dispatches of the first GT3 machine, and Graham Sanders is going to do the same, off in towards turn number 1, deep onto the brakes that they go. And now having to watch for the GT3 machine, Kraus being very patient, and for a second Sanders thought about trying to switch it up and going around the outside, but that's not going to be the move. But this is the danger. Traffic presents opportunities.
It presents opportunities, but it also can very easily take away opportunities as well. Right now, Sanders is doing everything he can to make the same moves as Kraus within the same set of corners. As we see a GT3 going very deep. Oh, wow, what a move from Kraus there.
Kraus and Sanders both getting through with some intent as well. They separate themselves out from Badefer, who had been closing that gap. Badefer of his own accord able to slip up the inside of one of the GT3 machines, and now going to get up the inside of both Logan Spath and Creighton Carter. This as well, a GT3 train that has been somewhat separated out into 3 different packs. There was a car going deep. Creighton Carter loses ground.
Fortunately, he's in that MotoGP chicane area there that was able to keep the car straight and shouldn't have had any damage or any contact with the grass there. So no harm, no foul for Creighton Carter, just some positions lost. But at the front of the field, it's definitely on between Sanders and Kraus, and it looks like Kraus so far has been negotiating it just a touch better than Sanders. Who was that in the pits there, Arjuna?
Not sure what happened to Logan Spath. We'll have to try and figure that one out, but clearly bit of drama the first cycle through of traffic, as we traditionally expect. There was a GT3 car getting very loose, and now Chris Reagan slides across the track and somehow doesn't get hit by anyone else.
I don't know how there was no contact being made there, Arjuna.
So we have plenty to take a look at. Let's start with this. Creighton Carter just goes deep of his own volition there.
Yeah, I think that one of the things about having the LMDHs come up on you is you're looking at your mirrors so hard that you don't necessarily see what's going on in the braking zone. It's easy to miss your braking point. It looks like Logan Spath just got loose. The car rotated through that final corner, hits the wall on the inside, and then rather than continuing on with some potential suspension damage, he just chooses to take a tow to pit lane here and at the very least address some mechanical concerns, but I think he might have parked it for the day.
Yeah, that was a weird one, and once you kind of damage the steering, it's very difficult to get these GT3 cars to feel, well, let's say, comfortable. I think that's probably the best way to put it. Still as well, one more replay that we haven't looked at. It's the most important one, I feel. Chris Reagan just gets shoved wide, and I tell you what, oh, there's a nervous moment for all.
Yeah, it's that curve in the chicane. There was a late lunge by a geodesic racing driver. I think that might have been Sanders, and it just caused him to get out and over that curb. And then once you start hopping, it's very difficult for these GT3s to stop hopping, and he just wheel hopped right around there. And
so now, not even 10 minutes complete. The first cycle through of traffic, I think, is officially in the books. And with about 1 minute 15 lap times, 10-second delta between the two cars, expect it to be probably only about 7 laps or so before we'll do that all again. Austin Young's trying to fight his way on through on Alex Guyon, has gotten past Bradley Sexton as well in the meantime, and assertively through on the Raven Lavoie Motorsports car.
And I must say the move that Young put on Sexton was also a heart and throat moment, as they both split a GT3 car, and Austin Young came at the better of that deal as well. So I think that it's definitely the case where he just needed a few laps here to really sort of settle into his car and his controls again, gain some confidence back, and I think you're starting to see the pace starting to emerge here, but he's got a long way to go if he wants to get back into that top 5.
Yeah, I was actually keeping an eye on this myself, so let's look at this. From up above, out of turns 1 and 2, and we saw this almost a moment ago, actually. Oh, you can see Sexton got a lot of contact as well. Have to wonder what that does to the left side rather of his car. And it's here that Austin Young sets it up. Sexton gets a terrible run onto the back straightaway, loses some of that hybrid power, and then eventually into the braking zone. Young's gonna get it done.
And it's a really nice move here from Young. Again, just laid on the brakes, gets nicely slowed down, and just completes the pass on Bradley Sexton. So real opportunistic movement there, but you can see just how much chaos can happen that first time through the field for these prototypes.
Ooh. And Austin Young was wide there. My eyes didn't deceive me, did they?
No, he was definitely wide, but he was able to keep it off of the grass. It looked like he might have gotten a lot of curb there, but I think he came out none the worse for wear.
Yeah, just trying to experience what the grass is like at the speedway. I can tell you, if you're on the golf course of which 4 holes are within the confines of the 2.5 mile oval. It's wonderful. I'm not sure if you necessarily want to be out on the grass anywhere around this part of the track. Gaps opened up once again now that we are out of the traffic cycle. Phil Kraus, 1.7 odd seconds clear of the 100 of Graham Sanders. Looking rearwards from the private label Team Hype machine and sliding through the chicane, or rather flip-flop section of the track. And the thing that I love about this, Andrew, is you just see the curbs at this part of the track are flat enough that you really want to take advantage of them.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of curbs that'll come back to bite you, such as the one on the inside of this corner here, which Phil Kraus gets cautiously on there, but a lot of the curbs here, you can take a lot of curve, particularly on the exit of many of these corners. So you just have to basically memorize the track and know which curbs to avoid, know which curbs you have to ride over, because there's a lot to be gained if you're not compared to when you're not on the curbs.
As we take a look at second, third, and almost fourth in GT3, you'll note that Sean Campbell has run away 3.3 clear of Otis and Chin, once again fighting for second in the championship and second on track as well. But note who's behind them, Andrew. It's the leader in AM, Chase Wilson. As mentioned, last time out showed that speed that we've seen from him. But like you mentioned as well, just not getting the result that maybe the pace warranted. And Wilson's doing a great job, clear of Callisto, clear of Marquez. The next AM driver is Trevor Malone, down in 8th position.
Yeah, this is exactly the type of day that Chase Wilson was hoping to have to rebound nicely from that disappointment at Silverstone. So this is the first time that we've really seen him almost on pace with the top 3 here. So he's doing a really solid job, and the important thing now for Wilson is to just settle into this race and not get too greedy here, and just realize that he's going to have a really nice points day if he keeps going this way.
And you can see the margins behind to Callisto. Marquez relatively comfortable as well, so keep the tires under you. Might still be some tire strategy to come, let's not forget. We have 30 lap fuel windows expected in the GTPs. It's closer to the 24 to 26 marker for the GT3s, so still going on longer than 30 minutes. It means less than 2 full pit stops are needed. How will the strategy play out? That's what we are, as ever, looking forward to being able to track. At least for the time being, though, I think drivers have settled into the rhythm quite nicely. Only Logan Spath has been confirmed as a DNF from today's race. Phil Kraus is about to get off back into some traffic.
Yeah, second time through the field, coming up quickly for your leader in the LMDHs, and Graham Sanders. The last time through, he lost about a good 1.5 seconds to Phil Kraus, so I think he's hoping for a better experience this time through.
1.8 seconds is definitely not comfortable, and this is definitely a track as well where, depending on where you catch them, rather catch the lap traffic, you will find yourself gaining or losing some time. You can see that Phil Kraus has to be a little careful coming out of that final corner with how the tires have worn. But able to spool himself onto the hybrid and pass 2 machines. That will help him nicely, because I get the sense Graham Sanders is going to see them battling into turn number 1.
And the problem with the battling is it's not going to afford Sanders any way. Oh, wow.
Sanders gets contact with them. Herrick and Crowther, I think 2 teammates, tangle with one another.
2 teammates have come together in turn 1, and it has affected Graham Sanders as well. He's lost a full second to Kraus, but I think he escaped without any major damage there.
Correct myself, not teammates there. Somewhat similar looking paints, but definitely not teammates. Because as you were saying though, Andrew, not ideal for Sanders to see the fighting in front of him, and now 2.5 seconds the margin, although Kraus has lost some time with traffic of his own.
The traffic gives and the traffic takes away from these LMDHs, so Sanders is just going to be hoping that he catches the rest of this traffic and doesn't have a heart and mouth moment like that again.
And well, there's never any guarantees like you mentioned. Here we look, it's just, I don't necessarily even know if Sanders actually gets too much contact as a result of that one. I was more contact, to be honest, on how Sanders avoided it than anything else. What do you think of the initial contact itself? It's a send under the brakes, and maybe Jim Herrick just coming around and trying to cut off the nose of Carter a little bit too.
It's all just a little bit clumsy there, isn't it? Herrick sends it in there, but it's only a half send, and he didn't really commit to the deep braking zone. Whereas Carter, I almost feel like he was going in there just a little too deep, trying to be defensive, maybe cut down on Herrick just a little bit, while Herrick didn't really have that much alongside him. So I don't know who to put the blame on, but it was definitely clumsy on both parts from my view.
On board with David Sirra, who's just been passed by Austin Young. Oh, big wiggle there for the iRacing geodesic number 11. Runs a little bit wide as well, but fortunately that's not a track limit violation. There's no track limit police that will be here today. Big moment there, but Young's now 6 seconds off the back of Michael O'Brien, and from being able to claw his way back up into what would be a very impressive top 5 finish, as Trevor Malone's gone off wide, and I think Phil Krause might have been involved.
Yeah, we're going to have to get a replay of that, but it's a shame for Malone because he was doing well. So it was just on his own there, it looks like, Arjuna. Krause had already made his way by, and I think it was similar to the incident we saw earlier, where he just missed his braking zone just a little bit, probably looking to see where Sanders was, looked up again and realized that he had just missed the braking point for that corner. But he was able to get it slowed down enough to just about get around the corner, and he hasn't lost, he's lost some time, but he hasn't lost any positions.
In now what has been a quite frenetic opening 20 minutes, it's back down to 2 seconds splitting. Krause and Sanders at the very front. Baderfer is only 3 seconds further back. And I must say, Caleb Bensi in that team race first number 29 is doing an admirable job to hold on to the back of the championship leader.
Really, really strong day from Caleb Bensi. He's not only has he been able to stay with the championship leader, he's actually reeled him in over the last couple of laps here. He's been negotiating the traffic better than Baderfer has, and it's really been showing. And it seems like, from looking at his car, it just looks like he's been able to keep the tires under him just a little bit better than Baderfer has.
Again, remember, we looked at the oars. Caleb Bensi goes a long way around on Chase Wilson. Lights flashing. I don't necessarily think the AM class leader appreciated that too much. Those track temperatures have only gone upwards. And the most scary thing in the world, there's not a cloud cover in the sky. It's not going to get warmer until we get towards the end of this race, and potentially only by a couple of degrees Celsius.
Yeah, there's not going to be much relief for these tires here today. It's definitely going to be one of the cases where you just have to take what you have with your tires and try not to run them off too hard, especially if you're one who likes to get back to the gas aggressively or get late on the brakes. It's very easy to run one end of your car off much faster than the other one. So the best driver is not just the driver who can conserve the tires, but conserve both ends of the tires and make sure that the car handles properly throughout the course of the run.
Well, just singing Caleb Bensi's praises. Josh Chin is flashing the lights. Don't think he's too impressed with Bensi there, who, to be fair, had lost a bunch of ground to Baderfer in that battle. Just look at this sequence, and it's not much that anyone can really do. Bensi catches Chin, and Otis in a pretty suboptimal place, if we're being honest here, especially against two of the strongest in the GT3 field who are going to carry as much momentum through that complex as possible. I think Chin feels that all that Bensi did there is slow down the both of them.
Yeah, and I have to agree with Josh just a little bit. There just really wasn't enough of a straightaway to get him fully alongside going into that right-hander there. And as much as it pains the LMDHs to have to stay behind the GT3s through that complex, you almost have to, because it just costs both of you time when you're not alongside like Bensi was there.
Absolutely. Carlos Villa's gotten past Andrew Marquez in this fight for fifth, although it's still Lionel Calisa that runs at the front of this little group. They're all losing ground to Chase Wilson. Again, remember, the AM leader. They score points together, so Wilson will defend that position as hard as he can, because those are valuable points in his quest to win the AM Championship. Matt Taylor clatters over the curb in that Patchworks Graphics LC entry. And are we going to see a bit more patience from him compared to Bensi? Well, runs a little bit wide from the camera angle that we get from the top of the pagoda, but then slots back underneath and uses the hybrid power to get past 1 and then 2 as back onto the banking and onto the brakes. It's crazy to think, Andrew, that we used to be foot to the floor flat from that section all the way to turn number 1 in the old configuration of this road course.
I must say, I do kind of like that long run that we had. It presented some really unique and interesting drafting opportunities. But I do see why, for safety reasons, it might not be the best thing to do here. So we're on board with Carlos Villa. Villa has actually had a really strong race. He was, of course, involved in that lap 1 incident, when Logan Spath made contact with him. But he's been having a nice recovery drive, got around Andrew Marquez, is now hounding the back of Lionel Callisto, and you have to wonder, Arjun, if he can get around Callisto, he might have something for Chase Wilson in front of him as well.
3.5 seconds at the front. Don't count out the fact that Phil Krause is starting to pull away once more as we edge towards that pit stop window. Villa's on the long way around. Callisto still alongside as we enter into the braking zone. Oh, bit of sideways moment for both of them. Somehow they're still side by side. Callisto slides back in and crucially chops off the nose of the 63 of Marquez.
Yeah, nice move there from Villa. He really used the momentum down the straightaway in the middle of the lap there, and it was just a power move around the outside, and when he got to that switchback complex, he was in the right spot. But look at Marquez. These three are all just pushing as hard as they possibly can. There's no tire saving going on with any of these drivers.
Okay. That was a bit of a different line there from Carlos Villa, and you can see the momentum that it's given him running out onto that main straightaway. This is where the draft starts to feed itself back, though, in towards those behind. And you mentioned, Andrew, the fact that the long run into turn 1 used to present setup challenges and opportunities. We would have differences between those that would pack downforce onto the car and struggle in a straight line but be so much better through the infield section versus those that were rocket ships in a straight line but were really awful through the mid part of the lap. These drivers all have fixed setups. They don't have that option to compromise their car in either direction.
The only thing that these drivers have that are different is who's in the driver's seat and the lines that they're taking, and it's definitely showing here who's coming and who is going. And Carlos Villa, who we're still with on screen, he's definitely one of the people who's going quickly up the timing pylon here.
3.6 seconds between Krause and Sanders, still keeping an eye on that margin as the fight now does not lie for 5th. Instead, it's for 6th as Villa well and truly seems to have broken that draft. Callisto having a couple of technical moments there that will surely worry him a little bit. Let's talk strategy, and let's talk about it within the lens of Josh Chin and the strategy choices that he's employed this season, Andrew. Tends to favor a bit of a light stop at the first pit stop cycle, which means that traditionally we see him in earlier for the second and final time. Maybe a little bit longer in the second and final time as well. But he's tucked up behind Ryan Otis right now with 9 seconds back to the next car they're fighting.
I'm just going out on a limb here and saying that maybe finally, Josh Chin has finally learned that he needs to save fuel in the first stint and have shorter stints later on in the race.
I would hope so. What's happened to Austin Young, though, who had run away slightly from David Sirois, but you can see onto the pit straight once more. Are the technical issues for Austin Young continuing to pose a bit of a problem? Let's find out.
I think he just, again, gets a little deep here, so I don't know if that's a technical issue so much as he's just trying to push as hard as he possibly can, and we've seen a number of drivers go that deep, and it's just cost him a good 3 seconds there.
Interesting. I'm now that I was very on the start of the race. I was very quick to say that I thought that was technical related. No, it was just Austin Young unfortunately missing his braking spot zone. We're still giving him the benefit of the doubt here in the commentary booth. You've given Josh Chin the benefit of the doubt when it comes to maybe him learning from some of the potential mistakes in pit stop strategies to this point. No Miguel Vigo as well, Andrew, also means that there's one less very quick car to tow one of these two around. Once they diverge on their pit strategies, they're on an island of their own.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if they come out together again for this second stint. If they don't, again, getting onto that island, this is why if you're Josh Chin, you need to be able to save as much as you possibly can and go as long as you can right now, because it'll allow you to sort of compound that. And if you get out on your own island in this second stint, you will have already saved more fuel than Ryan Otis did. So this is why I think Chin hopefully finally will go longer than Ryan Otis on the first stint in one of these races here, and I'm hoping it's today.
He's in the purple as well. He switched it between the red and purple. We'll see how that 73 continues to run. As to the end of lap number 19, they will work now 5 seconds off the back of the race leader, Sean Campbell. Continues just to extend his 100% record of poles and victories in races he has competed in. Tyler Gross on the bounce back after being tipped around in the early stages of the race, and he is today's BMW Performance Driving School driver profile. Someone that we see across of the bevy of Lionheart competitions, and looking at his Retro Series stats. First pole position came last year at Iowa, still searching for that first victory. But Tyler's always looking to learn no matter what car he's racing in. Has also now jumped into this GT3 car in the Precision Racing League, where we see him on Tuesday night. So double dose of Tyler on GT3 RaceSpot action. The thing with Tyler, just to remember, Andrew, is how much he contributes to the league when it comes to graphics and everything on social media.
Absolutely, as we watch some LMDH traffic battle through that GT3 traffic. But yeah, Tyler, he's never seen a Lionheart series that he didn't want to participate in, and as you say, he gives back so much to the Lionheart community as well, with it through his graphics business there, painting cars. He's a tremendous painter. Many of the cars, in fact, on this grid are painted by Tyler Graff. So if you haven't checked him out, you should definitely check him out if you're in search of a painter. Oh, we have a spin in the final chicane here, Arjuna.
It's Carlos Villa, Lionel Callisto. Andrew Marquez might have been involved in it as well, but it's all as we enter into a pit stop window. And interestingly, we got told 30 laps for the GTPs, but Sanders, Badeford, Benzie, O'Brien, 23 laps and done. They trundle down the lane.
And it's exactly 30 minutes, so you have to wonder if maybe it's not fuel, but tires that are the restricting factor for these prototypes as they're trundling down pit lane. And it's not just Benzie and O'Brien, Bradley Sexton's also in, so half of your LMDH field right now is already on pit lane.
And up on the jacks they go as expected. We'll track them and see how long these stops are. At the same time, let's pick up what happened to Villa. Just lost the rear end by himself, and Marquez is able to take avoiding action. And I think that was...
Callisto got a piece of him as he came around, took the rear bumper off of Villa.
Yeah, that was why we saw the rear bumper disappear and then magically reappear as well. Off of the pit lane, here we go. It was 27.8 seconds stationary for both of the Hydro Race geodesic racing machines, and crucially out into clean air.
Yeah, and you got to believe that's not a full tank for either of them. So they're definitely using the opportunity to have maybe a bit of a lighter car on this second stint here.
Less than an hour now to go. Phil Kraus last time by did a 1:15.8. He's almost within touching distance of those cars that have come down to pit lane. They did not lose a full lap, but very close to doing so. Michael O'Brien, Caleb Benzie, and Bradley Sexton are all now 1 lap down after their pit stops. So that's 0.8 of a second fall off for Phil Kraus. I have to see what for Sanders and Badeford they're able to do in terms of now with cars that are on fresh tires, Andrew, but heavier on fuel, what they'll be able to do.
Yeah, I definitely think that they're going to be going faster than Kraus here. Fortunately for Kraus, he had built up a pretty good gap here, so if he is looking to go long on this stint, he has the buffer to do it. So I definitely think Kraus, at this point, he's just cruising out there. And even if he sort of falls back into the clutches of Sanders just a little bit, I think he knows that not only will he have the driver to perform in this race, he's also going to have the lighter fuel and the shorter stints for the last 2/3 of this race. So I think he's thinking he's in a pretty good position right now.
Question will be, does he respond to the shorter stops from the Hydra Race pair, or will he stick to his guns and potentially go with a longer stop? It's on lap 26, so could go as many as 4 laps beyond this point, but we will have to wait and see. Similarly, I think we're not far away from getting off into a swath of GT3 stops. Andrew Marquez and Tyler Graf have come down the lane. Marquez, I think, directly after being involved in that drama with Via. The lap after that came down to the lane. Not sure if anyone else in this GT3 class are going to come in so early, though, Andrew, just because right now they are pretty much all, I think, in a decent window of fuel.
Yeah, I don't see too many of these GT3 drivers coming in too early. I think that they're going to want to, again, go as long as you can, because there is a distinct benefit in these situations with the really, really hot track. It's definitely to their benefit to have lighter cars in the second half of this race, particularly as the temperatures continue to climb. One note with that Callisto Via incident, both drivers have now retired from the race. So Via and Callisto, despite the bumper reattaching, looks like they had more terminal damage than we were anticipating there.
And join Logan Spath in the retiree club. Here's Sean Campbell pushing onto that pit lane entry, and now becoming the first major GT3 driver to make a pit stop. You can see both Ryan Otis and Josh Chin are going to stay out there on track and inherit what will be the lead, and crucially, notch a lead lap, Andrew.
That's absolutely important for Otis, because he is still very much in a battle with Josh Chin for the second place in this championship. So getting even the small little bonus points is very important for these drivers.
There is a bonus point for leading a lap. If Otis had come in on the same lap as Campbell, that would have been something that would have benefited the 73 machine. Wilson and Malone, the pair of AMs, also now down to the lane. We're waiting now for the likes of Kraus, Young, and Taylor inside of the LMDH class to make their first pit stops. Everyone else has already done so. Sean Campbell's being followed into the lane by most of the rest of the GT3 field at the end of lap 24, Andrew.
I think that you'll see probably Otis and Chin coming down, if not this lap, then the lap after. But here we see the driver of Sean Campbell coming back on track. He's only down to 5th place, so that just goes to show you just how many drivers have come down pit lane there.
Just Jim Herrick yet to pit in behind Sean Campbell. So Otis, Chin, Reagan, and Jaegerlane are those that we will wait to spot. As interestingly, Josh Chin comes in before Ryan Otis. Is this the recognition from Chin that tires are worth more than fuel?
I think it might be, and particularly if he saw Otis going 1 lap longer, he might know that this could be an opportunity to do the undercut. And this sort of puts him in between Campbell's strategy and Otis's strategy. So it's definitely not as bad as when Josh Chin was undercutting these drivers by 5 or 6 minutes. So I'm going to give him an okay for this one, but you saw just how much Otis was struggling through turn 4 there, didn't you, Arjuna?
And you can see it on the lap time as well, almost 2 seconds slower than the best lap time last time by. So Ryan Otis is losing a lot of time on these older tires. Could a 1-lap undercut be the difference? Josh Chin is hoping so, and we'll potentially find out shortly. 23.4 seconds for Chin means a very similar pit stop to what Sean Campbell did, and so the margin between Campbell and Chin should once again be sat right around 6 or so seconds as Chin emerges from the lane and will take what is a slight shortcut through turn number 1 that also reduces the delta that these drivers have on the pit lane. Austin Young's down towards the box, but Phil Kraus is still out there on the 29th lap. Is he going to wrap his way towards the pit lane this time by?
Yeah, I would be surprised if Kraus goes 1 more lap, but he could and still be within the fuel window. But I definitely think At this point, he's just cruising. So whatever he feels with the tires, yep, here he comes down pit lane this time by.
As expected, I think. And now Graham Sanders, just to put in context how long this pit lane is, he has just come across the line. It's going to be a long time before Phil Kraus emerges from the lane, and we will track his progress through and just keep an eye on that number 100 machine that dances through that first sector now, gets ready to flick it first left then right and on towards the back straight. Meanwhile, Phil Kraus has been transiting down the lane, Andrew, for 22 seconds and is still yet to find his way into the box.
So basically, from the time that that Kraus got into pit lane, it's taken basically all of this time, and it's turn 8, turn 9 is how far Sanders got around that track.
It's a really long pit lane, isn't it?
Well, when it's made for 33 Indy cars and 43 stock cars, yeah, it's definitely a long pit lane here.
It's also designed for Indy cars at speed as well, let's not forget. We're not necessarily hustling as much as they are. Kraus, 23 seconds and counting. 28 seconds was the stop for that number 100 machine. He is 1 second shorter. How close is it going to be? Sanders already up to speed, but Kraus will inherit again the net race lead, and by 3 seconds or so, we've got a strategy battle on our hands.
We do have a battle, but I don't think it's as big a battle as Sanders was hoping for, because now Kraus has got the lighter car and the shorter stops, the shorter stints from here on out. So it's going to take a lot for Sanders to really get up and close to Phil Kraus here, because he's honestly a good 5 seconds back at this point, or 4 seconds back.
Let's repeat the same exercise that we just did for the net race lead and the LMDHs with second in the GT3s. Chin out of the final corner, and Otis still yet to drop, and Otis has a longer distance to travel than Phil Kraus did after putting it in pole position. Joshua Chin heads towards the yard of bricks. Now we see Rhino just releasing himself off that limiter and heading off in towards turn number 1, but crawling. Chin around the outside is going to potentially be able to take away second. Tires still coming up to temperature for Otis. He's got the lead for now.
Out in front of Chin, but Chin's on the fresh tires, and so this will be his opportunity to get by Ryan Otis. If he allows Otis to really get back the temperature into the tires, the only thing that Chin can really do is stay behind him here. So you can see Chin taking every bit of road that he possibly can here, trying to get a potential move here on Otis. If not down into this corner here, you're probably looking at turn 1 as your next best option if you're Josh Chin. After that, it really becomes more difficult as the tires are basically up to temperature after about a lap and a half here.
And with the warm temperatures, it helps the tires come in that much quicker. Could it be traffic that plays its factor? Heading off to that final sector, up onto the banking, right up to the wall, straight line the braking zone. Don't mount the curb through the first part of the corner. Be a bit more aggressive through the second part to try and maximize your car on the left-hand side, which Josh Chin does a pretty good job of doing. Otis has done a fine job, though, of relieving himself from some of that pressure, but it's within a quarter of a second in closing as they scramble over the yard of bricks. Both cars having some draft. Chin's not close enough, I think, to have a lunge. He'll show his nose to the inside and tuck back into line.
I think Otis has done just enough to keep Josh Chin at bay, and certainly that car in front, I believe that's Jim Herrick, if I'm not mistaken. He's definitely helped Ryan Otis down that straightaway as he gives way now. But look at this, Phil Kraus is now negotiating this battle here. They are teammates, Chin and Kraus are, but I don't think that there was necessarily any love lost between Chin and Kraus there.
To be fair, I'm not necessarily sure what team orders could do to help Josh Chin in that situation. It's not like Phil Kraus can manufacture a situation on that back straightaway where Ryan Otis is suddenly going to lose any sort of ground. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that's what Josh Chin wants. He can sit behind, save some fuel once again, and put himself in a pretty good spot. Matt Taylor, has he been trying to secretly conjure up a one-stop strategy somehow? He's only managed to go about 47 minutes and counting.
By my estimation, he's going to be about 5 minutes short at the end of the race. But at the end of the day, if you can cut out a full stop here, that's basically a minute that you have to play with. So it's definitely worth the risk at this point for Matt Taylor. I would probably go for it if I were him.
Only problem is he's just gone one lap down because Phil Krause has gone through the opening corner. So if he loses another 65 odd seconds to Phil Krause, I don't necessarily think it's worked out the way that.
But it won't be Krause that he's really racing. Like you look at Young or Sirois, you're potentially looking at 6th or 7th for Taylor, where on pace he was in 9th or 10th.
But that's what I mean. If Matt Taylor is 1 lap down now, he'll be 2 laps down at the end of this race on pace. Cuts out a pit stop, it's 1 lap down. I don't think David Sirois is in too much danger right now.
But Sirois only got 30 seconds to getting lapped, and it's halfway through the race, so he's definitely going to be 1 lap down.
I'll just say this. Fuel-saving strategies like this traditionally only work at tracks like Long Beach.
I'm just saying I don't trust your commentator's math here, Arjuna, because the numbers I'm looking at make me think that Sirois certainly will be a lap down at the end of the race, and Guyon and Sexton will as well.
Oh, I agree. I just think Matt Taylor is going to be even further behind. Well, we have to wait and see. That's the beauty of a pit strategy. Now, one thing that we're not going to see, Sean Campbell being challenged. It's a shame.
It is a shame, but you will notice that Ryan Otis is slowly starting to eke out a little bit of time. He's up to 7 or 8 tenths of a second now over Josh Chin, but they're both 8 seconds back of Sean Campbell right now. So once again, it looks like it's going to take either a mistake or an incident for Sean Campbell to release his hold on the front of the GT3 field here in the Lionheart Sports Car Series.
5 seconds at the front for Phil Krause from Graham Sanders, at least for the time being. 6 laps the delta on their tires. The remarkable thing is, at least for the time being, no one in the LMDH class within real striking distance of a battle. The closest to the teammates, David Sirois and Alex Guyon. They're in 7th and 8th positions. Unlikely to, you think, push each other too hard, and Caleb Bensey's been able to push himself a little bit too hard and off the track.
And unfortunate for Bensey, and that's going to cost him in his battle with Michael O'Brien. We saw him really hounding the back of Beta for early on in this race, but he fell back into the clutches of Michael O'Brien, and now, through a couple of mistakes, it's cost him dearly here.
And look at this. Josh Chin's really lost touch with Ryan Otis. There's 2 cars between them, 1 LMDH, 1 GT3, yes. Out of that final corner, it's 1.5 seconds between the 2 of them. And it's the 71 of Creighton Carter that Josh Chin still got to find a way past. Carter moves to the inside, Chin slides on through, but the lights flash. Not very happy. Chin's got some work to do.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate when a lap car gets in between a battle, and particularly when it's a car that's in the same class as you. You don't normally expect that when you're in the GT3 field, but I mean, that's part of racing. You have to negotiate the traffic, and looked like Otis just got around Carter better than Chin did there.
1.7 and building. Oh, Chin's got some work to do. And it all comes as we have passed the halfway mark in this BMW Performance Center Grand Prix of Indy presented by Butt Kicker. It's dominant leaders at the front of both of the classes, but with still half the race to go in Speedway Indiana. It's anyone's game. The Speedway often will pick a winner. Don't go anywhere on RaceSpotTV. We'll be right back with coverage of the 2023 Butt Kicker Sports Car Series. Welcome back to RaceSpotTV and round 13 of the 2023 Butt Kicker Sports Car Series. We've landed up at the Speedway for the BMW Performance Center Indy Grand Prix presented by Butt Kicker, and now almost halfway through the race. It's a dominant lead extending in both of our classes. My name is Arjuna Kenkipati, delighted to be joined alongside by Andrew Kinsella. And Andrew, the strategy's proving quite interesting, yes, but Indy always finds a way of finding a way to surprise us at the very end.
Yeah, it absolutely does. You can never sleep on this race, even if it seems like you're you have the race well in hand. There's plenty of light flickering that we've seen over the course of this race, and all it takes is one misjudgment, and suddenly the entire complexion of the race changes.
And speaking of just one moment, Graham Sanders has lost a bunch of time in just one moment with traffic, and now the lead up to almost 8 full seconds at the front. Phil Krause, Graham Sanders, and John Bader all involved in the championship fight. All separated by only 10 seconds so far, Andrew, and you can see Bader's really closed the margin up on his HydroRace geodesic teammate.
Yeah, it's been a slow but steady drive for Bader. He hasn't made any mistakes, but he hasn't really seemed to have the speed that we've seen from him in the recent rounds of this championship. So I think that after the adventures that he had in Silverstone, he is taking a more measured approach to this one, and I think it's going to serve him well come the end of this race. One other thing to note is that Austin Young, his recovery drive continues, and he's very quickly closing up onto the back of Caleb Bensi for 5th position here.
Yep, we take a look at that now with the number 11. Remember, Austin Young, with the technical issues at the start of the race, was not able to really get a representative run in qualifying. Started in 7th, missed his braking zone into turn number 1 and dropped to the back. Now has a chance for a top 5. Catching Michael O'Brien might be asking for a bit, but there's still 40 minutes to go, and never count out. The driver who led the championship for a considerable part of the first 6 or so rounds of the season shows his way to the inside. Caleb Bensi in that Team Race First car is going to try and defend, but locks up the left front, and HydroRace number 11 slides on through.
A nice solid move there from Young. He was always going to be coming by Caleb Bensi there, and Bensi tried to defend, but as soon as you lock the tire in these cars, you just can't get the car to turn at the end of that long straightaway there. So nice move from Young, and as you say, I think he's actually got a pretty good shot at O'Brien here, Arjuna, because the one thing about having as little practice as he has, Young has basically been treating the first half of this race as a little bit of practice, getting the rhythm going, getting himself comfortable out there. So if he's got any more speed, he's definitely one of the drivers who can find it in this second half of the race.
One benefit as well is that he has fresher tires than Michael O'Brien and will likely be needing a little less fuel come the end of this race. Travis Jägerlehner gets passed by Craig Forsyth. There are battles going on up and down through the field. This is 8th and 9th positions. These are 2 of the class classified as pros in the GT3 field.
It's been a nice little battle between these two for the last few laps. Forsyth made a nice move there coming down into that final complex, but you can see that Jägerlehner is definitely not letting Forsyth go, so I think that this is not the last that we've seen of this battle here.
Keeping the right sides on the curb to sweep through turn 3. A little bit tighter to the apex as Jägerlehner than Forsyth, but just a little bit more tentative on the power at the same time. Margin stretches out and grows once again. Josh Chin, after losing some ground, has now gained it back up, all because Ryan Otis is really getting hammered in the traffic right now. Car trying to look up the inside. That's Chris Reagan, who's just come out of pit lane, and the LMDH trying to go around the outside. Chin now back in the drafting range.
Yeah, the traffic gives and the traffic takes away, and then suddenly Josh Chin finds himself right back in the clutch, or right back within grasping range of Ryan Otis. And the trick is now that Reagan is between them, and he is 2 laps down, so you would hope that he potentially gets out of the way and allows these 2 to battle, but you also at the same time know that Reagan's racing for his own championship, and he's got his own race to consider here. So going to be interesting to see what happens between these three, as we see Matt Taylor making a late dive down the inside of Josh Chin.
Yeah, that also did not help the case, did it? All that work that Chin had done, and the favor and fortune of getting the traffic at the right place to slow down Otis. Now, Chin loses that same amount of time. Reagan's going to pull to the inside initially, but Chin's just a little bit too far back, and Otis loses no time as Taylor gets on through on that main straightaway, all before they even head on into the braking zone once again of turn number 1. We have ticked away 41 laps for the LMDHs. This is one of the shorter laps of the season, and therefore we are looking to go upwards of 70 laps inside of 90 minutes. It's a pretty relentless streak. Phil Kraus with a 15.717 last time by actually extended the gap out by half a second. I think it's fair to say Phil Kraus has been the most comfortable today with every situation that's been thrown at him.
He certainly looks the most comfortable out there, and he's done a great job taking care of his tires as well. He was, of course, the driver who went the longest, barring Matt Taylor. But of the leading three, he was the driver who by far went the longest on that first stint. So he's found a rhythm where not only is he fast, but he's also taking care of his equipment, and that's always a dangerous combination for other drivers to try and overcome.
Haven't seen anyone be too aggressive with traffic actually just yet, which is, I think, been nice to see, Andrew. We were kind of discussing earlier how the contrast of the slower speed and the higher speed corners, no matter where you are, there's a big gulf in performance between both of the classes. LMDH is, of course, through the higher speed stuff, going to have so much more confidence into the braking zones. GT3s have the traction control, which will help them that little bit more as well. And, of course, they enter with lower speed. It's been pretty good in terms of the interactions overall. Most of the drama has been inter-class drama.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with you on that. For the most part, we of course have seen a couple of heart and mouth moments, but at the same time, it's nothing like we saw a couple of weeks ago at Silverstone, where there were some definite aggressive moves in that race. So far, it's been just a nice sort of quiet, clean race, and I think part of that is also just how treacherous the conditions are. Nobody's really wants to take the big risks in conditions like these, simply because the margin isn't there. Where you had last time out some really favorable driving conditions, it almost gives you a little bit of a license to take the risks, and when you don't have that anymore, it sort of produces a cleaner race, I think.
After Silverstone, after Monza, after some of the other races that we've had this season, I have liked the fact that race control has been relatively quiet today. Albeit, yes, we do have 3 retirements, Callisto, Via, and Spath, all in the GT3 class as well, in those BMW M4 GT3 machines. Turbo-powered cars, of course, the both of them. Slightly different styling cues at the front. The BMW M Hybrid V8 has the flared nostrils. The M4 GT3 has the big front teeth, if you will. They're both quite divisive in their own way, I feel, in terms of looks.
Do you prefer the GT or the prototype look?
Oh, the prototype, without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay, we're on the same page again here, because yeah, the prototype definitely, to me, it's got that nice sleek look to the front end. I definitely see where some people are coming from with the criticism, but to me, that's a pretty gorgeous looking race car coming down at 180 miles an hour at you.
Now, they're all of the prototypes, for the most part, that we have in 2023 look pretty good. I think that is also fair to say. But yeah, compare this. This is the BMW M Hybrid V8 to let's go give our AM Championship and class leader some love in the BMW M4 GT3, because yeah, the front end here is decidedly less inspiring. The only thing that could make it worse if you were to, I don't know, have to put a front number plate over the front grille.
That is true, and that is something that we suffer from up here in Ontario. Yeah. We do have the front license plates up here, but I will say, here's my criticism of the GT3 car.
Okay.
If you look at only the grill, what would you expect the headlights to look like? They should not be these aggressive slanted headlights
Right.
with a mouth like that on the front. You have to either embrace the grill that you've created or embrace the headlights you created and create a more aggressive grill. But those two things together do not go.
I see what you mean. I think the one thing, at least, that we don't have are the big memes. You see what I did there? Big memes?
I do see what you did there.
Yeah, no mate memes. The M8 GTE was glorious. I will die on that hill defending the M8 GTE. But yes, at least this has not got the size things going on in terms of the memes that get thrown on social media. Because boy, it was funny to start with, Andrew. Then it got old, at least to me.
I mean, I wasn't broadcasting several different GT races a week, so they never really got that old to me. But
No, I love the car. It was the memes that got old.
no, that's what I mean. Is I didn't have to deal with the memes on a regular basis. So.
Oh, you just aren't on those parts of Twitter. Sorry, what are we calling it now?
X.
Okay, that's the name of the week still.
See, I'm not an Elon Musk fanboy, so I just still call it Twitter and hope that it's just pissing him off that much more.
Oh,
so.
I just assume that the name's changed since then as well, you know? Anyway, Graham Sanders down onto pit lane, and only 22 laps in, so this is another early stop. Badefer's going to stay out there for one lap longer. We'll get a pretty good sense for what the overcut might look like. But, Andrew, do we have a fight for second effectively now?
I think we might. I think that Sanders was really suffering through most of that run there, and it shows with him coming right in on that half hour. So if Badefer can make it this last even a couple of laps longer than Sanders, it's going to give him an advantage come the end of this race because he's going to have a lighter car and fresher tires. So I think that there is going to be a little bit of a battle between teammates here on this final stint.
I'm looking forward to it as well. Two can't afford to tangle with each other because, of course, it bodes well in the HyperX team points for them to finish this one second and third. Continue, just build that margin up towards the front.
Yeah, definitely a good day for the team. And Austin Young is still on that recovery drive. He's got within 5 seconds of Michael O'Brien, so I don't know. I think he's still got a shot at this.
Oh, and here we go. Immediately responding. Here comes Badefer.
So this is an interesting call. So definitely they seem to be on similar strategies still, but Badefer did go that one lap longer. It is going to make a difference, but not as big a difference as it potentially could have, and certainly not as big an advantage as Phil Krause will have on this final stint.
It was 25.8 seconds for Graham Sanders, so it was pretty much a identical stop to what he had in the first stint, to be fair. And so as Austin Young's going to be the next to cycle on through and jump up to second in that LMDH class. Number 67 hits its marks. Badefer up on the jacks, and now his teammate Sanders up the inside of the 71 into turn 12.
Sanders snaking through the GT3 traffic. Did a good job negotiating there. Maybe lost about a half a second, but not more. So could have been much worse. And that was, in fact, one of the cars was even your GT3 leader there. So here comes Sanders trundling down pit lane. Badefer still not released. Now he's finally released. This is going to be tight, but I think Sanders has got it.
Yep, it's not even going to be close, actually, because as Sanders is off and away, Badefer's come out behind. Phil Krause still yet to dive down towards the lane, and emerges alongside the race leader of either side of the GT3 leader. Sean Campbell will not have been too thrilled to have experienced that. But now with fresh tyres, you'd assume that Badefer is going to be able to build up that gap to Krause. Krause is not going to want to push it too hard either. He's got a quite considerable margin to the teammates now behind.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you're Krause, you're like, I've got one of the Geodesic Racing team drivers right in front of me. As any racer will tell you, if you're about to put a driver a lap down, you're still motivated to put that driver a lap down. So I think Krause is going to try and make a move here, and it might end up costing both of them some time.
Krause will realize as well that He's only 19 laps into his run. He does have some more time before we expect him down on the lane, but he'll come in immediately, realizes that he doesn't need to sit behind the 67 and potentially lose time. This is the decision of someone that knows there's a championship on the line. There's no reason to take any risk.
Yeah, this is a very low-risk play from Phil Kraus. He could tell that he was going to lose some time behind Betafor. By the way, that battling that they did, it cost Betafor even a little bit more. So we're looking at about 7 seconds between Sanders and Betafor after that round of pit stops. So what was shaping up to be a close battle is no longer. But this is going to be telling for Kraus is how much fuel he puts in his car here, Arjuna. I think it's going to be a very quick stop for Phil Kraus.
I'll get to see the number. Of course, Kraus will have fuel still in that car. His private label Team Hype teammate in the GT3 categories down on the lane as well. And so the 73 of Chin going up against the 95 of Ryan Otis for one final pit stop sequence today. Austin Young inherits the race lead then as Phil Kraus is up on the jacks, getting what would seem to be 4 Michelin tires thrown onto that car. Where is it going to feed him out in comparison to Graham Sanders? It's a 25 second pit stop flat for Phil Kraus. It's a very tidy pit sequence. I think you can just about see Graham Sanders petering onto the main straight, but that margin's going to be upwards of 6 full seconds.
Yeah, not even close there between Sanders and Kraus. So Kraus is just looking in the perfect position for this final stint as he gets around Bradley Sexton, puts him 1 lap down. So real good strategy there from Kraus, getting out from behind Betafor, and he's firmly entrenched himself in the lead of this race.
And you could see Graham Sanders onto the back straight away. 6 seconds indeed the margin. 7 seconds back then to Betafor as well. Podium looking like it might be somewhat locked in. Where's Austin Young going to feed out? We'll have to keep an eye on this. For fans of Joshua Chin, 12.3 second pit stop there. That is very, very short. Ryan Otis is going to have a pretty short pit stop of his own as well, but Chin might have been saving some fuel. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that margin's going to change with an undercut attempted between Otis and Chin before the cycle opened, Andrew. That margin was holding at about 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be very interesting to see here. Chin definitely took a low fuel, no tire stop, so we'll see how that plays out. Austin Young, meanwhile, he's been closing in on Michael O'Brien for the last little while. We'll see how he comes out of pit lane in relation to O'Brien. I think that he's got a good shot at maybe cutting it down to like 2 or 3 seconds here.
I'm pretty sure that with the conditions on track, we have definitely seen 4 tire stops across the board for the LMDH's. Austin Young, 25 seconds again. Not really too much difference between pit stop times. There's Michael O'Brien back out and into 4th position. Austin Young got some work to do. Finally reaches that green cone, releases himself from the limiter, and now onto track and trying to race up to speed. Ryan Otis down on the lane, and it's another battle of the pit crew rather. It's Synergy Motorsports now that go to work to wrench on the 95.
I think probably Chin was hoping to go maybe a couple laps longer here. But Otis comes down and he basically had to respond to Josh Chin, particularly with the lightning quick stop. So we'll see if Otis takes tires here or not. That's going to be really, really telling if we go up on the jacks here with Ryan Otis. And he does go on the jacks.
But is it only going to be a 2-tire stop? It's 5, 6, 7 and counting. Remember, 12 seconds for Joshua Chin, and even though Otis has dropped and is now waiting, there's more fuel that was needed. It's going to be 16 full seconds, more than the margin that we think Chin needed. But how close is it going to be with Chin up to speed? Otis now waiting to release himself, and once again, it's the undercut that works a treat. Otis has got 3 seconds now to close.
Now, that was all done in the pit stop. Chin and Otis had basically been trading identical lap times before the pit cycle, but Chin somehow managed to go 3 seconds shorter in the box than than Ryan Otis, and that's put Josh Chin out in 2nd place here. But Otis has shown a little bit more speed than Chin, so will that translate into this final sector of the race? And we could have a really tight little battle here for second place as the race winds down.
Let's not forget that Josh Chin has been having to sit behind for parts of this race, also had to then push in that middle phase to try and close to Otis, but hasn't necessarily ever had truly clean air. How's that going to play as a bit of a factor? Otis has got to get the tires into the window. Pit lane delta between the two of them, upwards of 3 seconds. It was 3.5 seconds difference in terms of stop time itself, so Otis actually executed in the lane relatively effectively. Keep an eye on the margin to see if the 95 Synergy Motorsports car is going to be able to close, because back up front, your eyes do not deceive you. 6 seconds is now the margin between Sanders and Kraus. It's not coming down that quickly, but all it will take is 1 or 2 moments in traffic for suddenly a battle for the lead to be on our hands.
Yeah, we've seen this a few times before where Sanders will pull something out on this final stint and begin closing down, but I think it might be a case of too little too late without a little bit of assistance for Phil Kraus. He's got a little bit of a busy track in front of him right now, but after that it's all sort of strung out as well, so it's much less likely that something big will happen to Kraus here. So it's going to take a lot of doing for Sanders to really find a way by Phil Kraus at this point.
I 100% agree with you there, although 5.3 seconds into turn 1. Never say never in motorsports. Matt Taylor, we thought maybe was trying to make it on the one stop 20 minutes before the end, heads on to the pit lane again. And I guess he tried it, Andrew.
He did try it, and I will say that was only an 11-second stop, so he definitely did not take tires there.
Yes, and at least he committed fully to the strategy initially, right? Got within 3 or 4 minutes of the halfway mark of the race, so that's sometimes what the hesitation with going on those stints, those sorts of strategy becomes. Drivers half commit and don't fully dive into it. Unfortunately for Matt Taylor, I think reaching that pit stop realized it was going to be maybe a little bit too much for him to do, and now has 14 seconds to close up to Bradley Sexton if he wants to get at least one more position to his name. There is the charging Ryan Otis, who has been able to bring down the margin to Chin, down by a couple of tenths of a second, yes. Remember, it's about 1.5 seconds that Otis will be looking at in terms of drafting range. Right now, 2.9 seconds on the back straight.
Yeah, the gap is slowly coming down for Otis, but I don't think it's coming down quickly enough. The question will be, as the stint wears on, will the advantage swing back to Otis? We know that Otis is just so good on his tires, so consistent and so smooth. Chin, of course, is also a very smooth driver, but sometimes he will tend to push the car just a little bit harder, whereas Otis can really make the speed without pushing the car too hard. So it'll be interesting to see as the tires wear out here on this final stint what happens between these two cars.
Yeah, 20 minutes to go. Let's look at those conditions. As the fastest lap, just confirmation as well. John Bader for 1:14.902. Only driver into the 1:14s officially. It's only gotten warmer. 56 degrees Celsius on the track. For those of you that use imperial units, it's 132 degrees Fahrenheit. I definitely wouldn't want to be one of those fans sitting out there in the open sun. The Pagoda definitely seems like a good place to watch today's race.
I would definitely be in the Pagoda if it were me, or at least on the front straightaway under some of the covers there.
Yeah, the only problem with the front straight is there's still no air conditioning, and so you're reliant on natural wind to bring you some airflow, whereas for in the Pagoda, at the very least, you have the guarantee of air conditioning. So that's the benefit. Matt Taylor's returning to pit lane. Not sure what's happened to him, but Sean Campbell, race leader, final pit stop of the race, in what's been a relatively quiet day for him once more, Andrew.
Yeah, we've certainly had more stressful days for Sean Campbell, where he's been challenged far more than this. In this case, it's just been he got out to the lead fairly early on and was just able to consolidate and manage the gap, and he hasn't been doing too much else there. As A little bit of traffic there with Matt Taylor pulling back into pit lane as Campbell was pulling out, but all looked good there. Campbell with the 13-second stop, and he's going to come up probably about 7 or 8 seconds in front of Josh Chin when it all settles down.
I think right on the money is going to end up being about 7 seconds. There is the WMP Racing 26. There's the private label Team Hype number 73. And these are, again, crucial points for both Chin and Otis in their fight for second in the championship. Otis got the bonus point for leading a lap. Josh Chin will not have that to his name. We'll see how the points shake up, though, when we go racing next time out at the Nürburgring. Going to be very fun to see how that plays out. Chase Wilson, by the way, 5.5 seconds in front of Tyler Graf with 16-odd minutes to go. Graf is on a very impressive recovery drive, Andrew. Chase Wilson, I think, last time, 0.3 slower than Tyler Graf. Just has enough speed to potentially hold off the 98 to the checkered flag.
Yeah, it's going to be a tall order for Graf to get all the way up to Wilson. He definitely needs to dig deep and find just a few more tenths a lap here if he wants to get up to Wilson. Or he can hope that Wilson's misfortunes with the LMDHs continue as we see LMDH come through just before the chicane on the back, and you gotta wonder what it's like being in one of those GT3 cars as you see an LMDH car just slide in front of you through such a high commitment section.
It's not always easy, but that's where I feel like if you see it coming, and Tyler Graf, I think, recognized that it was coming there, you can leave yourself a little bit more wiggle room and just make sure that you don't put too much pressure on yourself on the turn, and you want to be able to turn in when you feel comfortable rather than waiting and delaying until someone else has cleared off of your nose. Battle for Race sees Jägerlehner and Forsyth clear of those behind, but now with traffic filtering through as well, always presents the opportunities. Forsyth deep under the brakes. Jägerlehner in the BMW factory colors still holds the position and has the inside line as they'll work their way towards the crucial corner. 3 wide with Graham Sanders getting on through, and Forsyth gets pushed off into the marbles.
That was an inopportune moment for Sanders to catch those two as they were both going side by side through the switchback there, and it cost Sanders a good half, actually a full second there, I think, if I'm reading that right.
I think so. We're 8 seconds now between Kraus and Sanders. I think might be up closer to 2 full seconds in terms of the time lost there. Definitely not an ideal situation by any means, but all of these drivers are fighting for their own little points battles because, Andrew, we're heading into the closing stages of the year.
It's amazing to think that the year is almost done at this point, but we still have a few more months to go here, and we have a busy month of October coming up with not just this race, but 2 more races in the month. Of course, you mentioned the Nürburgring as well, but it's going to be very hectic here for the next couple of months for these drivers.
This next month, the most frenetic as well. After that, 1 race per month to work on through means that there is going to be some time, a downtime for the drivers. They will want to make sure they don't lose any of their familiarity with the cars, and will need to keep practicing in the interim. Forsyth's going to try the up and under this time. Really tries to compromise Jägerlehner just that little bit more. It's deja vu, side by side once again. This time Forsyth that little bit more aggressive and clears himself on through, as Josh Chin will now swoop on through on Jägerlehner, very effectively working through the traffic.
Yeah, that was very opportunistic for Chin, and a very important move as well. He really needs to get through these 2 drivers as quickly as he possibly can so that he can keep the gap between himself and Otis at bay. And by doing that where he did, it's gonna allow him the ability to draft by Forsyth on this front straightaway potentially. So really good maneuvers there from Chin, and that's going to go a long way in his battle with Otis.
A little bit of a slingshot into turn 1, as off and away they go. Matt Taylor, by the way, seems to have joined Callisto, Villa, and Spath in retiring from this BMW Performance Center Indy Grand Prix, and that makes 4 of the 25 that started that will unfortunately not see at the end of this race. After this, by the way, it's not just the visit to the Nürburgring to look forward to in October. End of the month. Well, Imola's always an interesting one, Andrew, for multi-class racing. It's not definitely one that you would traditionally see on many endurance schedules.
No, it's not the most endurance friendly or the one that you think of when it comes to endurance racing, but I think it's going to present a very unique challenge because, I mean, you talk about traffic around here. There aren't very many. There's the one long straightaway basically at Imola, and the rest is going to be very tight quarters, lots of chicanes, hairpin corners. It's going to be interesting to watch these drivers in the multi-class environment negotiate that track.
Yeah, we do see endurance racing there, just to be honest, and to be fair, but it's more, you know, it's not the IMSA WeatherTech Sportscar Championship or anything like that. Not these type of machines. You'll see LMP3 cars. 24-hour Creventic series will run here with their smorgasbord of production car classes, but the speeds that we're going to bring down that main straightaway and the difference into turn number 1 and the line that you take there where you really want to run as wide into the corner as possible, it's going to present plenty of danger, that's for sure. 3 seconds still between Chin and Otis. It's not really closed on down through the traffic just yet. And Josh Chin with a 26.960 last time by. The only other driver except Sean Campbell to do a 126 on the track. Similar sort of story for the private label teammate up front. Phil Krause, the only driver in the 115s last time by.
And he has stretched his gap all the way up to 11 seconds to Graham Sanders now. So at this point, Phil Krause is just cruising around there, and he's doing a great job of it, just slowly and methodically working his way through the traffic, and he hasn't really put a foot wrong all race.
No, this is as well one of those races where it's not even just not putting a foot wrong, Andrew. We haven't had to look at Phil Krause very much, of course. It's almost a Sean Campbell-esque drive.
It really is. I think that he'll probably use the term vibing to describe how he was doing, knowing how Phil Krause is, but it's a real apt description here, isn't it? Because he's just been neat and tidy and not really taking any huge risks at all.
10 minutes to go. No more risks, hopefully, to be taken from many of these drivers. Unfortunately, some of them finding that, as we mentioned earlier, Indy often makes its own determination about where and how you're going to finish. That's Tyler Graf, unfortunately, looping it around in the opening sector of the lap. It's so easy to do with the weight transfer of this car as well. You can just see trying to swoop the car out wide, left rear into the grass, and from there gets lucky not to be tagged by the oncoming LMDHs.
Yeah, very fortunate to not get tagged there, but it does put Tyler Graf down some time in his quest to catch up with Chase Wilson. I'd say that unfortunately that's going to put paid to that one.
It's unfortunate, but Tyler Graf still should be able to nab that 5th position after the early contact as well. And our BMW Performance Driving School driver profile, or featured driver today, will be relatively happy with at least being able to finish a race decently. And tomorrow is going to have a very different experience in the Precision Racing League. Still in a BMW M4 GT3. This time, however, racing at the Hungaroring. It's almost the same as being at Indianapolis, Andrew. Almost the same.
Oh, yeah. It's basically the same track.
I do know, by the way, for a fact that some of the drivers in that race that he's doing tomorrow are going to try and want no-stop that race, because you can, hypothetically, do away with what is a pit stop only enforced by a limited fuel tank capacity. So it's going to be interesting to see if Tyler does any fuel saving tomorrow. 8 minutes to run, though. Are we going to see Hydro Race teammates battling? Sanders lost some ground after the spin from Tyler Graf. It's now 2.5 back to Badefer in 3rd.
Yeah, Badefer, we thought he was out of it after that round of pit stops and the disastrous time that he had there, but he's just slowly been closing back up onto the back of Sanders, and it's more Sanders falling back, as you say, not only with that incident with graph, but just in general, Sanders just hasn't been happy this final stint of the race compared to the other two in the top three. So I definitely think that there's still the potential here for Bedford to catch all the way back up to Sanders here.
A little bit of a slide there for Bedford. Definitely lost him a bit of ground. These LMDHs are stiffly sprung, let's not forget, to maximize the aero profile of the car, ensure there's a stable flow over all aerodynamic surfaces, and you can see that sometimes when they somewhat awkwardly funnel off a corner, not always with as much confidence on power as they sometimes seem like they should have. Austin Young, by the way, also trying to chase down an Hydro Race geodesic machine. He's only got him within 2 seconds of Michael O'Brien, who's doing a pretty good job to hold on to the gap right now. But last time by, lost almost 0.7 of a second.
And that's a lot to lose there. So Young, I don't know. I think Young is definitely coming here. I think he's gonna get there maybe with a minute or two left. So I think he might have a lap where he has a shot at O'Brien, but the time limit is quickly going down. And big mistake from Young. Never mind.
And it's not the first time he's made a mistake. I think it might be the first time he's made a mistake there, at least like that, at turn number 1. But he has been pushing through the course of this race with limited practice. An unfortunate potential end to a top 4 charge as Phil Kraus up the middle of 3 wide. 6 minutes to go. We thought this might be a no-risk race. What do we know about Phil Kraus?
I mean, I don't think that he felt that was too risky. Definitely, it looked like Herrick was getting well out of the way on the inside there, and Malone gave him a lot of room as well. So I don't think that was too risky in the eyes of Phil Kraus as he actually comes up onto the back of, I believe that's Sean Campbell. So we have both of our leaders in shot right now.
We do, albeit not for very long. 5 minutes to go. This should be the last time that the two of them encounter one another. So I think both now have a pretty good understanding of how many laps they probably have left to run. That's always the interesting thing about being the GT3 leader. The distance of your race is not determined by often your speed, it's determined by the faster class. Jim Herrick, well, into turn 1, looks okay. Just runs deep.
Yeah, it was just the case of where he knew early in the braking zone that he was never going to be able to make that corner, so he just opted out early and took that escape road and definitely lost out in his battle there, but fortunately escaped any further harm.
Seems like our YouTube chat has been able to start communicating with one another. We thank you for joining us here on RaceSpotTV. And they were wondering if Sean Campbell would be able to extend the margin to Joshua Chin to the double digits. Chin's trying. He's got some draft down the main straightaway, but unfortunately for a moment, that gap did tick over to 10 full seconds. Sean Campbell as well, I mentioned it earlier, won in an LMP3 car just a couple of hours ago here on RaceSpotTV. Decided, you know what? I haven't done enough racing for the day. Let me go over to the Butt Kicker Sportscar Championship. Let me run my BMW M4 and lead by 10.5 seconds. He's one of those rare drivers that can jump into anything and just be quick.
Absolutely, and one of those drivers who never gets tired of driving. He's not just tonight, but in general, he drives so much on this service and on RaceSpotTV, doesn't he? So he's just can never get enough of iRacing and sim racing in general, and it truly doesn't matter what type of car he's in. He'll have fun driving it, and he'll be driving at or near the front of the field.
You can see that Kraus has got the gap above 10 seconds in the LMDH class, so I think we're waiting to see if both of the gaps are going to be in the double-digit range. At the line, there's less than 3 minutes to go for these drivers, and about 3 minutes to go for Phil Kraus, which I think means probably still 3-4 laps to run. That is the one thing about having so many, such short lap times here. And Tyler Graf is going to be regretting how many laps that we have here, because his graphics LC counterpart Andrew Marquez has been able to close in the fight for 5th.
Yeah, this is real nice fight here, and I think Marquez definitely seems to be more confident. Of course, we did see that incident with Graf, so it's pretty safe to say at this point that Tyler Graf's tires are not happy with him, and so Marquez has the tire advantage. The question is, will he run out of time before he can make a move happen?
Into the final sector. Just looking at the body language of Graf, brakes much earlier than Marquez, but Marquez missed the apex. Overcommitted, over-eager to try and close the margin. And now has some more work to do. What should be 2 laps left to run for the two of them. Phil Krause is going to come around to take what should be 2 laps to go as well. We will not see the white flag. Excuse me, got myself confused. We're off into turn number 1. So we are indeed on the penultimate lap of the race.
On the penultimate lap of the race, and I was about to say with Marquez and Graf's battle, sometimes when you're the chasing driver, it's an advantage for you, but sometimes it can be a disadvantage because you want to go as deep as possible, but slow in, fast out is really the case, especially in these GT3 cars in certain cases. So you don't want to be the driver who's necessarily the last of the late breakers into every single corner.
Now, and you can see that as well. Marquez now has lost a bit of ground through all of that, and the 98 will have to deal with Beta for going around the outside through the first part of the S's. That will compromise the 98 just that little bit, but it's going to be about holding on to the momentum off corner exit and being able to hold the margin. White flag in hand, though. Phil Krause, 2.5 odd miles to go here at Speedway, Indiana.
What a drive it's been for Phil Krause. He, as we were saying, has done really nothing wrong this whole race. Taken very little risk, just been out there vibing on his own. 13.5 seconds as we cross the line to Graham Sanders now. So it's just been one of those races where nobody can stop the Krause train.
And of course, coming into this race, there were 6 points. I can do math. 6 points between Badefer and Krause. Krause likely to take the championship lead after this one, but of course drop round still very much a factor with plenty of races left to go. It is increasingly, though, starting to look like a 2-car fight at the front. Graham Sanders is keeping himself alive, but Phil Krause, John Badefer, Andrew, those two continuing to be consistently on the podium.
Absolutely, and if Krause can keep up this momentum, my money would be on this number 91. We saw what he could do in the Lionheart IndyCar Series and Open Wheel Series in years past. He's certainly showing that he can do that in the Sports Car Series as well, Arjuna.
Everyone wants to win on the famed yard of bricks, and Phil Krause will kiss the bricks. He wins the BMW Performance Center Grand Prix of Indianapolis, presented by Butt Kicker, and will take the championship lead. Oh, it's a busy month of October. It might be a month that determines who our champions are going to be. It will be a bit of a wait before we get both of our next set of winners across the line. Chase Wilson, in fact, comes to the line to be crowned yet again the AM Class winner. But more importantly, 4th in the combined GT3 standings. More valuable points being added in his quest to become the GT3 AM champion. It's 11-point-something seconds, the margin that Sean Campbell will wrap himself to the line with. It's another dominant victory, and the streak of 100% continues, Andrew. Pole to victory for Sean Campbell.
Once more, a dominant performance from Sean Campbell. I don't know how many more times we can say that this year about this driver. He's just got a number on this entire field, and it's just been incredible to watch Sean Campbell's consistency and performance.
Final cars will come to the line. Ryan Otis, surprisingly, lost some time. Almost 8 seconds back of Joshua Chin come the end. Not sure if that was traffic assisted or if there was maybe more to the tail. See if we can dig into that in our post-race show. Coming up shortly here on RaceSpotTV, just waiting for one final car to reach the line before we will wrap things up here from Speedway, Indiana. 12 seconds between Campbell and Chin, 15 seconds between Krause and Sanders. Margins that reflected the comfort of our victors, Andrew.
Absolutely. It was a little bit of an easy drive for our race winners today, but there was plenty of battling throughout the field, particularly in that GT3 field. There was a lot of physicality that happened at certain points of this race as well. So really, really nice race to watch there, and can't wait to hear what these drivers have to say in victory lane.
Yeah, we can take a look at our butt kicker race results from this BMW Performance Center Grand Prix of Indianapolis. 15 seconds, the margin between Phil Krause and Graham Sanders. It's a Hydra Race geodesic 2, 3, and 4. But crucially, the points leader Bader for back in third. Krause should jump to the very top of this LMDH class. Michael O'Brien was unable to hold off Austin Young in those closing stages. Fourth and fifth swapped hands, while Caleb Benzie showed speed early doors. Unfortunately, was unable to hold that throughout the entirety of the run, dropped to 6th, but the last car on the lead lap. The Synergy Lavoie Motorsports teammates, 7th and 8th positions for David Sirra and Alex Guyon, while Bradley Sexton, the final of the finishing machines. Matt Taylor, 16 laps down, tried a different strategy, did not work out in his favor. That was all of the BMW M hybrids that took the start. Meanwhile, in the GT3s, it's 12 seconds between Campbell and Chin, while Otis a further 8 seconds back in what seems to be a rather familiar podium, given what we've seen over the course of 2023. Chase Wilson, maybe the strongest that we've seen him, only 4th position, yes, and classified as 1 lap down, but the pace was definitely there and was able to break away from the likes of Tyler Graff and Andrew Marquez to separate himself from the next of the AMs, Trevor Malone, in 7th spot. Craig Forsyth and then Travis Yeagelanus find themselves sandwiched between 2nd and 3rd in AM, with Creighton Carter coming through the wars to be in 10th spot, in front of the likes of Herrick, Reagan, Callisto, Villa, and Spath, with 3 retirees in this GT3 class. And so, with our rundown of the race results, we are led directly into our butt kicker post-race show. It's always great to be able to talk to the drivers, get some of their impressions from the race, and it means we can dive in towards the HyperX victory lane and chat with Phil Krause once again. Phil, it looks rather comfortable for you out there once you were able to break away, but I don't think any victory is ever comfortable. Talk us through that.
Yeah, hi Arjuna, first off, but yeah, honestly, that was probably one of the calmer races I've had this season, because even at Silverstone, I had a pretty intense battle with Adam at the start, but this one, it was tense for the first run, and then seeing what would happen on the pit exit, because I know Graham and John tried the undercut, so I was kind of like watching them and my relative up ahead, seeing how much time they were making, because I knew if I ran it long, I'd have that fuel advantage for the rest of the race. And when I pit, I merged about 3 seconds ahead of Graham or so, and then was just able to grow the gap from there.
Yeah, there were some warm track temperatures, which I think is why we kind of wondered if some might come in a little bit early. How rough was it out there at the end of that first stint to keep the tires underneath you?
Once I got 2 tire warnings on lap 28, we knew it was time to pit. I think I was like 30-something% on the left rear, so right before the actual like proper cliff in the GTP. But yeah, the in-lap was definitely a little slidey. It wasn't like too terrifying, but there was a lot of pace loss in that last lap for sure.
Well, I think that answers what I was very much wondering 30-odd minutes into this race. We think you've taken the championship lead, Phil. It's going to be a crucial month of October because, of course, 2 weeks away we head to the Nürburgring. 2 weeks after that over to Imola. And from there, it's just 1 race a month before the champion is crowned. How are you feeling heading into those next 2 races, maybe the crucial races in the championship run?
Honestly, I'm really happy to stack these wins at Silverstone and here at Indy, because I have little to no confidence in Nürburgring. Imola's kind of meh, but Nürburgring I've never really gone well at, so we'll see how that goes. I'm sure I'm doomer posting and it'll actually go a lot better than I'm implying, but we'll see, Arjuna, we'll see.
Well, congratulations, Phil Krause. Another victory in the Butt Kicker Sports Car Series.
Cheers.
Unfortunately, Andrew Kinsella would have lost money there. I don't think we heard her vibing out of Phil Krause, unfortunately, but we can head down to a driver that was definitely also vibing throughout the course of that race. Sean Campbell maintains the 100% streak in the GT3 class. Pole position, a victory once again. Sean, talk us through that one.
Well, it was a race. There was a lot of tire saving because of how hot the track was. So it was mainly about keeping the tires in check.
Yeah, I think that we talked about that a little bit. Phil Kraus was mentioning that as well. He said he got 2 tire warnings. How bad were your tires at the end of your fuel runs? Because it looked like some of the GT3 drivers tried taking on 2 tires in the final stop, and it did look a little bit sketchy for them.
Yeah, I took 2 tires in the final stop as well, but I think the worst I had was 46% on the left side, which is not awful. I think the cliff in these cars is like 25, so there was definitely some leeway, but it was just the heat in the tires would build up, so even if the percent wasn't bad, you just would have no grip by the end if you didn't maintain them.
Well, we need to apparently take more grip away from you, Sean. You become a fixture in HyperX Victory Lane. We're running out of questions to ask you, to be completely honest, but we head off to the Nürburgring next. Unfortunately, it's not the Nordschleife. What should we expect from a trip over to the other side of the pond?
I think the racing is going to be good because the track is cambered. Well, a fair amount of the corners on the GP circuit are cambered, so I think the racing is going to be closer. Very fast pit lane if we use the GP layout. We might use the WEC layout though.
Well, looking forward to seeing how Sean Campbell goes at the Nürburgring in 2 weeks' time, Sean.
Hopefully.
The WMP Racing number 26, a double victory on RaceSpotTV tonight, and we head over to the GT3 AM class where Chase Wilson was able to come across the line in 4th. Chase, talk us through that one. Looks like some quite strong speed, and then was able to hold off those behind you trying to chase you down.
Yeah, it was a really good race. Looking to bounce back off of the disappointment of last week's race at Silverstone and continue to build a strong points gap. I was happy to have my spotter Rich Calais back guiding me through the traffic today, but it was just keeping it clean, avoiding issues in traffic, and really being easy on the tires that allowed us to make this run today.
Yeah, talk to us about how tire management works at a track like this as well, where there's so many slower speed corners and you're trying to, progressively get onto the power with the warm track temperatures. How did that feel for you, having to be very tentative around the track over the longer fuel runs?
It's just being easy on the tires and looking towards those last 2 laps at the stint. So if you burn the tires out too early, you're going to be slipping and sliding and losing a lot of lap time. So I think it was important to bring the tires up slowly and not try to put in your fastest qualifying laps during the race, and being easy with the throttle pedal, because it was really easy out of those slow corners to burn the rears, and then you're in a world of hurt.
Congratulations, Chase Wilson, another victory in the GT3 AM class.
Thank you, guys.
Always great to talk to our 3 winners, and to wrap up our post-race coverage, we can take a look forward to what should, according to Sean Campbell at least, Andrew, be an interesting visit over to the Nürburgring Grand Prix layout for the GSI Grand Prix of the Nürburgring.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to see what's in store for these sports car series drivers, because he touched on a little bit the camber nature of many of these corners will make it very interesting, but it's also a very narrow track in general. So passing is going to be at a premium, and cooperation between the classes is going to be very important. So I definitely it has all the makings of a classic butt kicker sports car series race at this point.
And as we make our way into the next official iRacing season, it means that the car is once again being stabilized. There's no changes that the drivers are adapting to. This next couple of races is going to be very important. 2-week gaps between the Nürburgring, Imola, Suzuka, all building up then to 1-month gaps to our penultimate trip, a race of the season, a trip to Motegi, and of course under the night lights at Daytona. Just before the 2024 Rolex 24, we will crown a champion on January the 15th. Still, Andrew, I think this LMDH class looks wide open. It's in the GT3s right now, where 2 championship contenders are making themselves the favorites.
Absolutely. I'd say that we basically have one hand on the trophy for both the Pro and the AM class, Sean Campbell and Chase Wilson, and one hand on the steering wheel of a BMW in Thermal, California. But as you say, it's wide open in that LMDH field, and there's at least 3, if not 4 drivers who can have the crown at this point.
That's the wildest thing. It still could go any way, and it's all going to be live on RaceSpotTV as we make our way into 2024, turn the chapter into a new year, and crown a champion in the inaugural Butt Kicker Sports Car Series. As we wrap things up, don't forget that you need to head to LionheartRacingSeries.com to learn more about the 3 competitions the Lionheart sanctioning body puts on. And you can stay connected on Lionheart social media to all the latest news from the world of Lionheart, as well as to stay connected to the various partners that make all of this possible. Another great race here at the Speedway, but for the very first time in Lionheart competition, it was with multi-class madness. The next time we go racing in the Butt Kicker Sports Car Championship presented by the BMW Performance Driving School, it's on the other side of the pond with a trip over to the Nürburgring for the Gomez Sim Industries Nürburgring Grand Prix presented by Next Level Racing. Before that, the Lionheart Retro Series heads to Laguna Seca for the Gomez Sim Industry Grand Prix of Monterey presented by Butt Kicker. Join us on October the 12th for all the action here live on RaceSpotTV. For Andrew Kinsella alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations to 3 dominant winners kissing the bricks here in Speedway, Indiana.